So in this diagram which we have seen before, I had mentioned that the clients of this bean can be other beans or can be web components. So web components can be servlets, they can be a JSF managed bean, just like we have three types of beans over here or four types of beans over here. There are few types of beans in JSF too. So we can inject this bean either in other beans, or you can inject this bean in the components or in JSF managed beans. So in the examples till now, we were injecting the bean only in a single bean, but they can be injected in any kind of web components, or they can be injected in any kind of bean. Say this bean is singleton, stateless, stateful, any kind of bean can be injected in any kind of bean. The only thing is remote clients cannot have the beans injected in them. They have to use JNDI for that. But not all clients are proper for different kind of beans. So let's see what are the ideal clients for each type of beans. So here I have mentioned all the beans in your service layer and who should be the ideal clients or where they should be injected and get used. Now a stateless bean can be injected into other stateless beans, stateful beans, singleton beans, and all JSF managed beans. Just like there are beans in session layer, there are some beans in JSF layer too. So all kinds of beans, JSF beans, can be clients for this stateless bean. And servlets can also be a client for stateless beans. Basically, whether it's the web layer or the other beans in the service layer, all can be clients for this bean. Now, what are the ideal clients for a stateful bean? For a stateful bean, the ideal clients are other stateful beans and JSF session beans. So basically, I am not saying all JSF managed beans. I am saying only one of the JSF bean which is named as session. So as I said before, there are few beans in JSF layer 2. One of them is session. So that is the proper client for this. Notice that I haven't mentioned stateless beans and singleton beans as ideal clients for stateful beans. Why is that so? So let's see what happens if we put a stateless bean as a client for a stateful bean. So if we inject a stateful bean in a stateless bean, something like this will occur. As you know, the server maintains an instance pool for the stateless beans. If we inject stateful beans in stateless beans, there will be one instant of stateful bean per stateless bean. So if there are 50 instances of stateless bean, there will be 50 stateful beans created. But this concept is not at all related to the session management for the bean. Stateful beans are supposed to maintain conversational information related to a particular user or related to a particular session. But when there is a pool of stateless beans in which the stateful beans are being injected, there is no concept of sessions in this. If the server decides to reduce the pool size, maybe trim some instances, then some of the instances may just keep on dangling because maybe their remove method haven't been called. Basically, there is no session concept when you inject a stateful bean as stateless bean. We usually want our stateful beans to be one per user, not one per stateless bean. So that's why stateless beans are not proper client for stateful beans. Now let's consider if a singleton bean is a client for stateful bean. So if you inject a stateful bean in a singleton bean, only one instant of that stateful bean will be created. Again, this is not related to concept of a user session. So again, singleton bean is not a proper client for a stateful bean. So you just shouldn't inject a stateful bean in a singleton bean. So the ideal clients for stateful bean are other stateful beans and JSF session bean. So JSF session bean is related to the concept of a user session, and that's why it's an ideal client for stateful bean. Now your singleton beans, just like your stateless session beans, can be injected in any components either in your web layer or in your session layer itself. For example, stateless beans, stateful beans, other singleton beans, all JSF managed beans, and servlets can be proper clients for singleton beans. For message driven beans, you cannot directly inject your MDBs in any client and use them. So basically there are no clients. We'll study more about MDB in the chapter on JMS.